associated with the shoal water that was inside the channel, and the fact that few of the pilots that ride you in and out, they didn't know about it. So it was incumbent upon us to be able to make sure that we kept that ship off the sand, and I'm eternally grateful to Craig Honor for doing that for me. So thank you, Craig. So after overhaul, we had the opportunity to do a light-off examination with the Propulsion Examining Board. We integrated women onto USS Seattle in 1994. We went to Gitmo for a shakedown cruise, and I've heard several interesting stories about your experiences at Gitmo over the years. And of course, we got to do another Oppie, another one of my personal favorites. And then we went in to do some counter drug ops. And this was sort of an interesting thing also. So we're down there for the purpose of refueling the small destroyers and frigates for a multinational effort in order to go out and run down these drug smugglers, and get them, cut off the flow of drugs to the United States. So what the smugglers did not expect was this big old fat ship to be able to run them down. So we found this guy that looked suspicious out there. We had him on radar, and we started closing, and pretty soon, he could see that we were there. And he wasn't worried about us because we were a tanker from their perspective, a refueling ship. So he took off, and we took off with him, and we kept going and going and going. And pretty soon, he gave up the ghost there, and he started throwing his contraband drugs over the side. We ended up, then he went into territorial waters and got away from us, but we picked up the largest contraband interception on that entire summer. In July, we ended up with, I think it was like 1.3 or 1.5 million street value of marijuana that we had picked up and ran these guys out of the area. So I've got one final experience here that I'd sort of like to end with before my closing remarks. And this was a defining moment, if you will, in my time as commanding officer of Seattle. It was in March 1993. We had been at sea doing Oppie preps, and we were at about 40% fuel, so we were riding pretty high. And the leadership ashore says, then there was a storm coming. The leadership ashore said, in this particular case, let's bring the ship in, we'll send them to Cranny Island, and they'll be able to refuel while the storm sort of blows through. Some of the smaller ships, they got them underway, no big deal. Well, I'll try to keep this relatively short because I could tell this story for hours because it was such a defining moment. I can remember a few very specifics. At 14:47 in the afternoon, the winds were on the port side. We were port side 2. We knew winds were coming. They were forecast to be about 30 knots. So we had every line, anchor underfoot, and I think we even had the towing hawser on the pier because we wanted to make sure that we were secure. 2 minutes later, at 14:49, the winds had increased from 14 to 74 miles per hour, directly on the beam. Now, if you know, Seattle with 40% fuel, there's a lot of beam up there, setting high in the water. So, we could feel, I was in the captain's cabin talking to the gunner, I think, about, how come we don't get our bombs stowed faster or something. And you could feel a little motion, and then about a minute later you said, you're bosun to the quarterdeck with a 1MC. Followed about 30 seconds later by first lieutenant to the quarterdeck. Sort of, wonder what's going on. So I go up to the bridge, and when I got up there, I could see that the ship had already pulled away from the pier about 10 degrees. And while I was standing there, I watched the bollards on the pier where we had doubled the lines down, started the cleats first, cleats started pulling out of the pier, then the bollards started being pulled up for the spouses out there. They're the great big things that are supposed to hold everything. We started pulling those things out of the pier. One of them hit the stack, one of them hit, I think, one of the conrep pieces of gear. One went into the weapons space, and one went over the stack and literally went 150 or 200 yards out into the channel. So it became obvious to the new captain at that time, we better get underway, because we're going to get underway whether we want to or not. So I think we were down to one boiler at that time. We just secured, we had lines over, we hadn't started fueling, but some of the hoses were over, and we had probably 50 or 100 sailors ashore working on the shore side, and that wind did not stop, and we just kept getting further and further and further away. And we got those main old engines coming up online and started to get just a little bit of motion, and it continues to turn and turn and turn, and pretty soon we're almost 90 degrees to the pier. All the lines back aft are gone. The anchor is still underfoot, and one or two lines up front. When we cut those lines, we ended up breaking out the exothermic cutting torch to get the anchor back up, and we were underway in 70 knots of wind in a channel that was 1,000 feet wide, and we were 800 feet long, going backwards at all engines back full. Well, I could go on to this story for hours, but the winds that were forecast at 30 stayed at 60 for hours. And we were able to have a couple tugs come up and did great things, and we ended up getting fair into the channel, and the wind eventually was at our backs. We were going 6 knots with 0 RPMs. We eventually anchored, steamed into the anchor all night long, and the next morning did I ever get my ass chewed by Commander's Surface Force. But that was a defining moment for the crew of Seattle under my command, because never, ever had I ever seen so many people do so much to save an important asset like USS Seattle. So I will be eternally grateful to the crew of Seattle for the fantastic job they did. We had $150,000 or $200,000 worth of damage. There were ships that were blown off the pier all over Norfolk Harbor that day, including LSDs or LHDs. So just the defining moment of my time on Seattle. So while we had challenges at sea, there were also some challenges going on at home. Not Charlie. We had a fantastic spouse support group. They just did a fantastic job of supporting each other. We had spouses that didn't have driver's license. We had spouses that didn't have any money, including mine. We had spouses that didn't know where to go, how to do it, and these folks worked together like a precision piece of equipment, and they were able to overcome every single one of these challenges that were going on back home. And I could not be more proud of the work that spouse group did, and I'd like to do a special personal thanks to my wife, Charlie. I would like to thank her for the leadership that she provided, the support that she provided to the other spouses out there, and the dedication that she had to those spouses, and the dedication that she had to me, just like we heard earlier. When the ship got underway to go on deployment, there were a lot of sad faces on the pier, as you would imagine, except for one. That snake face right there was smiling a smile that big, because she knew this was very, very important that we do that, and she was there for me. And then she was just one of the many smiling faces when we came back. So, Charlie, thank you very much for your support, and thank you again to the spouses that are out there for taking care of this. I'm going to stop here and just say that many of the experiences that we had on Seattle has prepared us for life. Many of you, just so many of you out there have talked about your experiences that you learned in the Navy and on Seattle, and it went on to carry on into your career. We had teachers over here. We had people that have just spent a lifetime of so many different things. And one of them that I'd like to point out is Dave right here. You remember hearing earlier today that Dave received a refund from the Navy Exchange for uniforms that were provided to him by the Navy, and that he got free uniforms from a shipmate after that. And I think it is perfectly appropriate that prepared him for a career in banking. And then there's Carlos out there, said he qualified for nothing when he came into the Navy. And then he qualified for everything after he left the Navy and was between jobs. So another great example of turnaround in lives that the Navy has done. And then Earl may have already left. I thought I saw him go there, but another great example. Here's the loss of home, and it was his shipmates that stood up and served him and helped him get through the challenges. So in closing, if you're on a battleship, the main battery of a battleship are those 16-inch guns, or later on the Tomahawk cruise missiles. If you're on an aircraft carrier, the main battery of an aircraft carrier is not the ship, it's the air wing. The ship's designed to get the air wing to where the air wing can do the mission that they're desired to do. On an AOE, our mission was feed, fuel, and arm the fleet. No ship, none, has done her mission or her duty better than our ship, USS Seattle. Thank you, shipmates. You have accomplished the mission like no others, and I couldn't be more proud of you. Thanks for including Charlie and me. God bless Seattle and their memories. God bless our crew from 1969 to 2005. God bless our association, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.